I think about Exit Through the Gift Shop a lot. It's a film about street art's proliferation into the gallery art world, told by the street artists entering and succeeding in that gallery art world. One of them just happens to embody everything the others hate about art. By the end, Banksy comes to the conclusion that art is maybe a joke.
I mean, I always used to encourage everyone I met to make art. I used to think everyone should do it. I don't really do that so much anymore.
You can feel any way you want about Terry in the film. The man made millions of dollars off his schlock, but the film comes down firmly on the side of him being a fraud. There are good points made about artists taking time to grow, and how artists usually struggle to find their voice for a long while before getting like a big art gallery show, but I find myself conflicted. For those who haven't seen it, the film follows Terry as he becomes obsessed with filming everything in his life, which leads him to filming his cousin who does street art. This introduces him to more and more artists, and eventually Banksy, who ends up turning the thousands of unsorted tapes of Terry's into the documentary we're watching. It ends with Terry becoming a street artist himself, encouraged and supported by Banksy's team and others he met along the way. He does what is now considered rather generic street art, with the aid of his own team, paid for by refinancing his house, and it turns into a gallery show that makes him over $1 million. Throughout the film, people look at the camera in a talking head interview and call Terry mentally unwell, handicapped, and even the arsler, all while comedic backing tracks play to highlight just how funny all of this is supposed to be. Point and laugh at the loser who turned art into a mockery, who isn't a native English speaker, who lost his mom at a young age and became obsessed with collecting footage for memory's sake as a response. There's a point in the film that's supposed to be dark, like this low point, where you find out that despite the hundreds of hours Terry has filmed, he isn't actually making a documentary out of it. He's just storing the tapes. And I kinda get it. He's lied to all these street artists that he's making a documentary about street art and such. But Terry has a passion, and his passion has meaning on its own. Banksy and his money is able to translate that into a film easily. I mean, it's what we're watching. But they act like this is some grave betrayal, and it honestly falls flat for me. It just serves as another place to stop and laugh at this man. To Banksy's credit, he tries really hard not to disparage Terry during his interviews, but he still does. He, like everyone else, can't help it. The final bit of the film is Banksy saying how he always pushed the people in his life to create art, that anyone could do it and that everyone should do it. But now, after Terry, he doesn't do that anymore. The conclusion of the film, therefore, is some people shouldn't create art. I have a lot of emotions about that movie. Like, I get it, Terry was an asshole to his crew, he was given way too much money for shit that he shouldn't have been given the money for, but I hate what the film says. I hate the words it says to me. In his video essay Control-Alt-Delete, H-Bomber says of the comic with the same name,
Cat turned out to be reflective of the cultural reality that produced it, and people are only angry at it this much because they don't like what they saw in the mirror.
I think about that when I watch what happened in Exit Through the Gift Shop. I think about that line in relation to me and my art. I'm sitting here with my cat. It's 1:16 p.m. here on the East Coast, and I can hear the bugs chirping outside. The sound pulses and fades. A Minecraft video plays on my television. I have some coffee and some donuts, and I'm thinking about something dramatic. Indulge me. Errant Signal has a video that I think about quite often. It's called The 10th Anniversary Spectacular of Introspective Narcissism. In it, he speaks about his place in the YouTube video game essayist space, and how for his entire career he's been waiting for that big break, that moment that his channel takes off and he could quit his day job and do YouTube full-time. He compares himself to other channels who have been around as long as he has, who have enough revenue to support several full-time careers. He compares who he was 10 years ago to who he is now. He says he's felt the entire 10 years that everything he was doing was the before time, before success, before a critical mass or a viral video. And he comes to this conclusion.
This is it. This is Errant Signal. We're 10 years in now. This show is not waiting to bloom. There is no next part where content production ramps up and everything gets taken to the next level. There is no job or community or validation waiting for me on the other side of some hypothetical horizon. And to bring this back to the original point of the video, that realization makes it hard not to feel like I failed.
The video is an honest and honestly optimistic look at personal goals, failing to reach those, and what that means as a creator. Errant Signal compares this to an older video of his that he now disagrees with and says that he's grown and changed. And maybe, perhaps, the goals of the channel should grow and change. He's at a point in his life where success on YouTube isn't his primary goal. And I've been thinking about that video for the last 3 years, like since it came out. If you set personal goals for yourself, projects that you want to make, goals you want to reach, and you fail to reach those or do those projects, what does it mean? If you set financial goals and are unable to reach them, what does that mean? To what degree can you truly judge yourself? And to what degree do others judge you? Lady Emily's video, The Failure of Channel Awesome's Demo Reel, dives into, well, the failure of Channel Awesome's demo reel. In it, she makes a lot of good points about the arguably terrible output of Channel Awesome and the failure of Doug Walker as a filmmaker. And they all essentially boil down to Walker being incompetent. He doesn't do the camera good. He doesn't do the writing good. He doesn't do the acting good. He doesn't know why movie good or bad. He doesn't know how to write jokes or anything. He's just not good. There is good art, and there is poorly made art where incompetent people attempt things and fail. And Doug Walker is doing the poorly made thing. It doesn't matter if he wants it to be good, or if he is trying hard, he simply has failed. Failure is possible, and not only is it possible, but you can fail badly. So badly that people make a lot of video essays about how badly you failed. And I get it. It's acceptable on the internet that Channel Awesome is, in fact, not awesome. That it is a failure and gross, arguably. But God, if that doesn't hit me in a way, if that doesn't strike the same chords as Exit Through the Gift Shop, the idea that someone can think they're good but simply not be, that someone can create and it can be a failure despite everything they put in, that some people are good artists and others are not. There are qualities a person can have that make them good or bad at art, and those qualities can't be seen by the person making the art. It's horrifying. Imposter syndrome to me manifests in thoughts like this. That thinking I'm good at my craft is a ridiculous endeavor. That maybe my words aren't good. Maybe book bad. Maybe graphic design no good. Maybe no good word bad art. Think bad. That there is this cultural idea of what is good art, and that if you don't fall inside of that, then perhaps you're seen as incompetent. And perhaps it's impossible to know where you fall until it's too late. These are the demons of self-doubt, the knife of imposter syndrome, the fear of failure. It makes me think about the movie Amadeus. This is how my brain works, by the way. Like, YouTube video about silly movie reviewer guy leads to critically acclaimed movie Amadeus. Like, just bear with me, okay? This is what I live with. For those who haven't seen it, it's about Salieri, a composer of some prominence during Mozart's time. It's a movie about these thoughts I've been sharing, essentially. It's about Salieri being a jealous simp because Mozart is portrayed as simply better than him in every conceivable way. Salieri himself is in awe of Mozart's methods, and I think anyone who isn't completely in the weeds about classical music would agree that Mozart is obviously better than Salieri because we remember him. A great Matthew Matosis quote goes,
"Over time, the past gets more and more compressed until only the most important points remain. You can think of every classic as a peak on a mountain. The tide keeps rising, drowning out all the lower peaks. As the water gets higher, the average distance between peaks just keeps getting wider. To the casual music listener, most of Mozart's contemporaries, like Salieri, have drowned, and someday he might too."
He wrote that quote about the impossible task of playing every video game ever made. How there are so many games that have come out since the dawn of video games that there is not enough time in a single critic's life to play them all. That certain games rise to the level of classics and that others fade into obscurity. They drown. I think the fear of failure is linked to the fear of obscurity. That if I have this personal goal of being a great writer, then what's worse than simply being forgotten, than fading into obscurity? Part of what makes this all hard as a creative is realizing how much of it is outside of you. I'm not arguing for Salieri being better than Mozart, or that Terry was a great artist, or that Channel Awesome is a monument of cinema, and I'm definitely not arguing for any of their personal characters either. I don't think I'm really arguing for anything at all. I think I am merely pointing to something that is taking shape, at least inside of me. The idea that so much of your artistic presence is in the hands of others, that time may or may not remember you, and that time may be or may not remember you for the reasons you hoped, and that you only have a small say in that process. That when you decide to be an artist, especially one who puts their work out into the world like a publicly to make money, to support yourself, that there are really only 3 destinations for you. That of Doug Walker and Channel Awesome, Terry, Control-Alt-Delete, where you were remembered for how incompetent you were. That of the Mozarts, where you are remembered as being the best. Or lastly, obscurity. And what a coin toss that is. Existential dread is real and alive with the beat of personal failings. I think about these things a lot because I can be a jealous simp too, just like Salieri. I can feel negative thoughts about the writer's place in the tabletop role-playing game field. It's easy to blame everything else on why a project you make doesn't live up to your expectations. It's easy to blame the culture or to say that people just don't get it. The other side of that, though, is to blame yourself, to think the project wasn't good enough. The writing wasn't good enough. The art wasn't good enough. Perhaps, like Doug Walker, the general consensus is that you are a creator who is incompetent. I think both of these methods of thought are detrimental to the soul. I think they come out in darker times, and I don't think I have anything greater to say about them. Primarily because I think they are, well, natural. I think self-doubt is normal. I think disappointment is normal. I don't think trying to solve these feelings is any more possible than solving sadness. I do think it's important to not use those thoughts as a basis for how you see yourself in the grand scheme. I think it's important to understand the weight of financial responsibility that all of us are put under, and that tying that to your artistic output can get your wires crossed and your feelings crossed inside of you and might lead to you writing an essay like this. I think ultimately, this all circles back to that errant signal video. That maybe there's an issue with thinking that all of your work is building to something more. And that maybe there isn't a more. There is only now.